Hello everyone, and welcome to the rotation tutorial. Threes rotation specifically in Rocket League and how you should do it. A general guide on how to do it. And we might dispel some misconceptions about the concept as well. I'm going to show you guys some drawings, some SketchUps of where you can move your car during the game compared to your teammates or relative to your teammates. We'll talk about that concept as it applies to the kickoff and then offense and then also defense. Okay, so the first thing to remember is that this is a general guide and nothing here is really set in stone. You'll meet a lot of people, a lot of players out there that think that it is, that you have to rotate a certain way all the time, every time, and that just isn't the case. And that's one of the myths out there that we should dispel right now. Your rotation is going to have to vary based on the circumstances. This game is very situational, so what you need to do, how you have to react, is going to change from moment to moment. And so we really can't say that, okay, this is what you have to do every single time, this is where you should be every single time, because obviously the ball can change direction at any moment for any reason. So just use this as a general guide. The next point we want to consider is that the spread of the rotation. So typically we think of the rotation in the form of a circle. You're kind of circling around with your teammates, or even a triangle. That's how I think of it. But think of it as a triangle that stretches as the need arises. So there is no specific distance you should be away from each teammate. As you gain more experience and you rank up, that distance will typically change and you'll get used to it. Typically what you'll find is the higher the skill level in the lobby, the further out you need to stretch the rotation distance between you and your teammates, because of course there's always, as you get higher up in skill, people will hit the ball with more power, and that hard clear that everybody's afraid of that's going to go right back to the net and nobody will be there to defend it is more and more likely as you go up in rank. The next bullet point is to follow through on your touches. That is, light, small touches that you make on the ball. If you make a heavy touch, which means you hit the ball harder and it goes further away from you and you actually have to boost quite a bit to catch up, that's typically not something you want to do. You should give up on the ball and rotate back if you have just passed the ball to the opponents. So following through is not so much about rotation, but it is involved in the sense that if you follow through on your touches, that tells your teammates to back off and to hold their position, because you're following through and you're trying to complete the play. That doesn't mean that you're trying to score on your own, but it could be that you're trying to get the ball in front of the net, you're trying to make a pass, but it's going to take you several touches and maybe even more than one 50-50 in order to make that happen. The next bullet point is backing up your teammates 50-50s. This is a concept that can be used but doesn't necessarily apply in every circumstance. In threes, you usually have your first man is the man, controlling the ball, starting the play, the offensive play. Second man back typically might follow him, and it just depends on rank, of course, or really the skill level of the lobby. It's more useful at lower skill levels, but I have seen plenty of teams, especially those who are partied and they're coordinated and they know each other, where they will just plow through the defense just by forcing their way through. One has the ball, and if he doesn't successfully get a 50-50, on the opponent, his teammate will be literally right behind him to back him up and keep pushing the ball forward, basically. We'll talk about that a little more as we look at the sketches later. The next bullet point is to be adaptable. Not everybody rotates the same way. Not everybody does it as quickly as others. Some methods are worse than others. Some are better. But be adaptable. If you're solo queuing, this is very important. You may find that one teammate makes a play on the ball. Whether he's successful or not, he rotates right back behind you the other way and waits for you to make your play on the ball. You may find that a different teammate will keep putting pressure on the ball himself until he gets it through and scores himself, which is not really a rotation at all. You'll find this more actually in 2s and 3s, but be adaptable. If you see that your teammate is a little bit slower in his rotation and he goes further back than maybe you're used to, try and adapt your speed to his. But the rule here is that you're not going to get very far if you can't be flexible. So keep that in mind. The next point I want to talk about is that rotation is not so much about taking turns handling the ball as much as it is about applying pressure. While it does feel like you're doing that at times, you're making a play on the ball, you're dribbling, you're pushing it forward, you get a 50-50, you lose the 50, it goes back. Now it's your teammate's turn, the second man, to come and do the same thing basically. And then it just kind of rotates around. Then third man comes up and he takes a turn until you can get the ball through. So it does feel like you're taking turns, but I don't want you to think about rotation in that light or in that sense, because if you do, you will tend to sit back and watch, sit back and wait for something to go well or something to go wrong. And the trouble with that mentality is that if your teammate happens to make a really good pass or get the ball center in a way that's advantageous for your team, you may not be there in time because you're too busy actually waiting and hanging out, basically, not moving around, setting yourself up in a position where he can pass to you. I'd rather you think about rotation in the sense of, by this person, first man going or making a play himself, trying to get the ball to the second man, and then he fails, then second man comes in, takes over, tries again. But the idea behind that is that the pressure doesn't let up. You always have another teammate coming up to the ball to put pressure on the defense and keep the ball on their side of the field. First man puts pressure on, he moves the ball. Whether he fails or not, he rotates back, he grabs boost, gets behind the third man comes up to the second man position, and we'll show this in the sketch as well. And this turn taking, remember, don't think of it as taking turns, just think of it as we need to keep pressure on the ball, on the defense. Alright, so let's start with kickoffs, because that is part of your rotation. It's how you set up your rotation to begin with. Some general rules of thumb you want to keep in mind with the kickoff. Even though this is not a kickoff tutorial, we'll include this in here. Number 1, don't leave the net undefended. This is common in every rank right up through champ. Your back two players here, represented by second and third, they will commonly both go for boost in the corners. The first man will inevitably fail the kickoff, miss the ball, and you'll have a cheater or a cheating second man on the opposition come up, hit the ball directly into the net, and you will almost never get back in time from the corner boost. So always have a man back. That's why I have third man here, kind of circling around during the initial phase of the kickoff. That's going to prevent probably, I'd say 60% of all the goals scored in this game, which are undefended kickoff goals. Second rule, at least one player should be going for full boost right on the kickoff. That's usually the second man. So his options are here, or corner boost, and then forward up to mid. Hopefully the first man here can knock the ball left, basically a pass off the kickoff, and he can take control of the ball right here to make their first initial offensive play. The third point is to leave a full boost pad for the first man. Here's your first man. Once he hits the ball, he typically has very little, if any, boost left. His options are these four right here, depending on where he lands. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Those mini boost pads will get him to the next boost pad and then the next. So typically I try to leave these side boost pads because a lot of kickoff runners, first mans, tend to go for those. So I will try, if I'm second man, I will just default to the corner so that I can leave this for him. But if I see he's on this side, we might leave this one. Probably best to leave both so that he has something to come back to. Too many times I've seen this where the second man grabs the boost in the corner and then also the boost here. Third man comes and grabs this boost, and this boost is taken by the defense, by the opponent. And so your first man comes directly off the kickoff with nothing and nowhere to go to for a full boost pad. He has to pick up the pennies, as it were, across the field here. So keep that in mind. That'll help alleviate any pressure right off the kickoff. Okay, so here we are at offensive rotation. This assumes you have the ball under your control, and many plays will end up invariably with the ball against the wall of the side. So this is not the only scenario, but it is very typical and very common, so I'll just address this particular scenario. But this does cover most situations. Again, this is a general guide, so rotation will change. That triangle I was talking about earlier in the rotation will have to stretch from side to side, front and back, depending on how fast the game is moving and where the ball is. So we'll just assume for the sake of this tutorial that this is the ball right here, this red circle. And here's your first man, the one controlling the ball, and he's trying to push it this way, of course, around the corner towards net. What's his job? His job is obviously to get the ball into the box. One thing to remember is that if this is your position, make your last touch no later than this area here at the near post. If you continue to follow through on the ball within the box, you are going to confuse your second man, who should be the one taking the shot, not you typically. And you may end up putting a last second touch on the ball that screws him up completely and he whiffs it. And so you can be in a very difficult position because you will likely be out of boost by this point, bumping into people at net, and he will be in the back of the opponent's net, also possibly with minimal boost. And now you're leaving your third man to clean up your mess. So keep that in mind, no last second touches. Your objective should be to push the ball through, make your last touch no later than the near post, as I mentioned, and then keep moving this way. That's follow the arrow, keep moving this way. Your objective right after that is to put a bump on the goalie or goalies, a demo, whatever you can to clear the path for your second man to come in and take the shot. Your rotation comes back to the corner boost, assuming it's there. You can cut across here and grab these pennies here if you have to and this corner is not there. Second man, his job is to take the shot and then make a hook all the way back to the mid boost, not all the way back here, but back to mid. And if that isn't there, you have this option, that option, this one, and this one, and this one. This is all his boost right here. First man, this is your boost right here. Third man has two options. If the ball is already in the corner, he should be near the midfield. If it's not, if it's still over here, you should be back further. A rule of thumb that I use is if I'm third man, I do not pass mid. Actually, I don't leave the goal. I don't leave the goal until my teammate has gotten the ball past the midpoint. Once he's past the midpoint, I start to advance to one of these positions here on either side. Once he's up here, this is about the distance you should keep typically in a higher mid-range, like high plat to high diamond. This should be the distance you keep. You go once you're reaching champ, this actually needs to stretch even further. But again, this is situational. It depends. So you covered first man, covered second man, third man. His job can be one of two things. He can follow up on the first man. If he loses a 50-50 pretty hard and the ball comes screaming down the wall here, he can put a block up. But he should be careful in taking that type of position and be aware that if he fails this 50 or fails to block the ball, there is nobody else here unless the second man has already decided to turn back for some reason. So if second man is still hovering around here near the box, you should not challenge here. Rather, follow the ball, turn, and follow the opponent with the ball back to give your teammates time to rotate back and help you out. And you can very easily still defend the ball even if it's behind you without backflipping into it. Let the ball coast, come down here. If the ball is riding the wall, you can come up and just clear it all the way this way. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Just don't put it in front of the net. The second option third man has is to go center. To back up the second man, prevent a midfield clear. However, be cautious with this. I don't, as a general rule, advance to this position unless I see that the opponent cars are not facing down the pitch, facing this direction. Okay? If you have a goalie waiting for this pass, and he's facing this direction, this is a very easy full court clear. So coming to this position just before that could possibly happen is obviously a very bad idea. So I will stay here because from this position you can easily turn 45 degrees and come and save the ball if there's a hard clear. So keep an eye on the goalies. Are they facing this way down the pitch? Are they facing sideways? If they're facing sideways, there's not likely to be a hard clear. There could be a pinch, possibly. So keep your eye out for that, but also keep your eye on your second man. Where is he? Is he on his way back? Then maybe you could advance. That should do it for the offensive rotation. So the next we'll do is defense. Alright, so in defense it gets a little more, well, the drawing gets a little more complex. But look at the orange. The orange represents the opponent and blue is your team. Here's our ball. Here's the opponent's first man, second man, third man. Assume that you guys have just had to rotate all the way back, all three of you, or at least two of you, to defend your side of the field. First man is going to, again, this is assuming the scenario is the ball is coming from the side of the pitch, which is very common. First man, what's his job? His job is to protect this area of the field. The wall and to the side of him. The ball is going to get pushed this way or up the wall. Second man should be stationed at near post. Not in here, unless the ball has come a little further and your third man is not back yet. But he should be right about here, hovering in this general area. His objective is to protect this area here. Notice this encompasses right up the backboard. It is not the first man's job to come back here, basically do a 180 and try and protect the ball still, unless there is nobody back here. He needs to put a play on the ball right here, and if he fails, he needs to rotate back around this way. Okay, that's how rotation works, right? Rotate back this way, somewhere in this vicinity, or back this way. That's a little far out to the mid boost, but he should be coming back. Here's a penny, here's one, another one, come back here, something like that. Once the first man fails a touch, if he cannot block the ball, second man goes in, he pushes it out. Third man should be far post. If the second man is near post, he should not be right behind him here. You're leaving the net open. And if he decides to back up, which happens all the time, you'll be in his way. So position far post, that also gives you a very good position to defend the ball that has been popped along the wall, but out away from the wall a little bit and over the head of man 1 and 2. You can then jump, right, and field the ball, block it somewhere around this area. If somehow the pass gets pinched or thrown sideways this way to the second man, infield pass, you will be in a ideal position to block it. This is your area of defense here. And from this position, not from this one, from this far post position and only here, will you be able to see the second man in a position for an infield pass. A quick infield pass to man number 2 is going to be very effective for the offense. So you need to see this coming, and the only way you're going to is if you're back here. Now, if the ball is still in play here, and the third man is typically still rotating back, he's the last one, this guy, your job right here is to demo number 2. Bump him, demo him on your way back. Grab these pads back to the corner and then to the post. And you won't even have to defend an infield pass at that point. And if this ball gets past man 1 and 2 and gets popped center over the net, he will not be there to make the shot. Third man back will be playing it safe back here, so he's not likely an issue to have to worry about. One other thing I'll say about third man is, depending on where the ball is positioned here, you may want to be in the net at about this kind of angle here. This gives you a better view of the infield, your second man here as well, and still keeps you in a good position to defend most of the net. The only thing it doesn't do is allow you to see anybody coming from this side of the field, of course. You can use your camera to kind of swing out and take a quick peek, see if third man has switched positions. But generally speaking, either here or in here, depending on how the ball is being played. If you don't have a second man here, if he got lost in a shuffle, maybe he got bumped, and you have to take his position as number 2, it may be wise to hang out back here and then advance to this position to prevent the ball from getting passed here. A lot of guys will end up staying here though and waiting for the ball to come to them. That's obviously very foolish, because man 2 has a superior positioning and momentum to get this ball in right at the corner before you can even get to it from here. So if you're standing still, right, think about how long it's going to take you to gain speed, dodge, and jump, and field the ball in this area at the far post. This guy could have the ball in the net by then. One last thing I'll mention is to try not to cut rotation on defense. It can be confusing. A lot of times what you'll see is your first and second man back here, or he might be in here. Man 2 might be back here. And your third man comes in and he just cuts right in between the two to try and make a block here. That always invariably ends up in a break in a rotation, a undefended net, because the real second man is not expecting you to do that, and you're on his side of you, right? If he's here, he can't see you. Even with the widest field of view, it's going to be very hard for him to determine that you're going to make a jump to the ball here, or you're going to cut him off. He may already have committed himself to a defensive maneuver and can't stop because he's in midair. And so we have a open net. Two guys that will likely bump into each other, and the ball is scored. So that should do it for defense. And for this tutorial, if you liked it, please hit the like button. If you have any suggestions or questions, please leave them in the comments below. I hope this is helpful and that you enjoyed it. See you soon.